I think we all agree, we're all in support. I mean, we want Bradford to be as successful as it possibly can be, and you know, as a Bradfordian, will champion it wherever I possibly can. Now to the interesting part for you guys, the Q&A. Does anybody have any questions for either Susan or Gerry?
Hi, Gerry. You are the epitome of a good athlete. Can you explain the obesity epidemic that's going on?
I'm not sure how to say that, really. It's a very important point, actually. If you look at the obesity figures in terms of what's happening as a country, and the big issue at the moment is whether we should have a sugar tax or not, you know, in terms of the soft drinks and that. The health of our population is vitally important, the health of our young people. And part of the reason why we want sport to do well is to act as an inspiration to people to get out and be active. And we want people to be the best that they can be. But people have to be active. The health bill now is astronomical, and everybody will know in terms of the pressures on the National Health Service. So it's important that we try and get people out there and be active. As I say, everybody can't win gold medals, everybody can't be superstars, but you can be the best that you can be. And if you've got within, you know, your areas the opportunity to play sports or get active in whatever way, then we should do that. Cycling is obviously one that's benefited the news today that for the Yorkshire income, I think it's £10.5 million additional funding has come through cycling in the area. But the obesity issue is a massive one. There's also, and I suppose it's good news for people like me, is that we're living longer. And so there's a more elderly population that need to be looked after as well, and there are obesity issues there in terms of diets and all of that. The point being, though, that it is, you know, forever putting pressure on essential services in the health service. So we do really need to look at ourselves as individuals about making sure that we try and do our bit to get that bit more active. I don't know if you've got anything to...
I feel we should do a duet on these stools, actually, Gerry. But I shan't sing. So obesity, yeah, I'm the chair of the Health and Wellbeing Board now, actually, and we had a big discussion about obesity at our last meeting. And actually, we have an opportunity in Bradford to get this right, you know, because we do have such a young population. If the young people grow up at a decent weight, then they're going to be decent weighted adults as well, actually. So we've got to get it right now, because later it'll be too late. The older you are, the harder it is to keep the weight off. And there's a plethora of initiatives. There's obesity classes. At the extreme, there's gastric bans and things like that the NHS are fitting. But actually, it's our youngsters, our children at school, and actually, even from the year zero, if you get it right then, you've got it right for the rest of their lives. So I'm keen to concentrate any resources we've got on the young people to make sure we get it right for the future. And that's a bit of a unique opportunity for Bradford that other cities don't have.
It's a question for Gerry, but Susan, you can have a go as well. Hearing the Olympians speak about when they were at school and they wanted to aspire to have a gold medal, often the teachers were laughing at them. Just wondering if there was any particular sport that you were good at when you were at school, Gerry, and if you do anything now, what's your favourite sport? Same applies to Sue, we won't let you off.
Well, it's a good question. One of the things that happened, if you looked, I said we only got one medal in Atlanta, and then you looked at what happened in Beijing, and you looked at the number of medal winners who come from private schools, privately educated persons, then you look at what's happening in Rio now, where we've got a diversity of backgrounds from, you know, how people have won the medals. I think it's great. I've always been sporty. I enjoyed playing football, rugby at school. Not very good. But what I always say is that it was sport through my life, through my friends, who are still my friends now, that I've grown up with. I mean, I've loved politics and I've enjoyed politics, but it's sport and the camaraderie of sport that has got me the friends that I've got now. My claim to fame is I played at the Old Wembley 5 times, New Wembley twice. I've played all over Europe on Premier League grounds. There was nobody there watching, but I was playing. It was great.
I'll beat that. Well, I mean, when I was at school, I don't think when I was at school, actually, it was before your time when you were Minister, Gerry, so I don't think they really taught us how to enjoy sport. It was, if you were good at it, then it was great. If you weren't, they just sort of left you behind. So I felt I missed out on enjoying sport. What I was good at was cross-country running, actually, because I found that if you kept going, you got around quicker. So that's what I was very good at, and I had a lot of stamina for that, so that was all right. And recently, actually, we had a councillors versus officers cricket match, and that was the first time ever I've played cricket, and I quite enjoyed that, actually. Didn't understand the rules at all, but I enjoyed that. So I think I would enjoy playing sport and team games if I did more of it, but unfortunately now I don't get time.
For the more elderly in the room, there is now walking football. Don't know if you've come across it, but it's worth having a go at.
I'd just like to ask, you talked about the success of the 2012 Olympics. Do you agree that since the Olympics is over, it's been a complete failure? I mean, the government targets to get people back into sport, initiated by the Olympics, and all the good excitement that was generated, statistically has been a complete failure, to the point where West Ham United have been virtually given a football stadium that the British taxpayer paid for. Do you agree that that was a massive opportunity lost, which we won't get back?
I've got mixed feelings about that. I mean, I think we were wrong at the time to overstate legacy, because legacy meant different things to different people. For legacy, for me, was the ability to achieve in a wider range of sports than we were ever able to do before. And that meant investment in those sports. And as I said, even down to school level where people could play different sports than they did previously. But you're right, we didn't get the figures in terms of the participation rates that we thought. Now, I personally have got a view that was because of problems within school sport immediately after we left government, and I'm not making a political point. I spoke to Michael Gove. Michael Gove said to me, Gerry, I don't like sport. I don't think it influences people's lives. And he was Secretary of State for Education, and you saw what happened to the school sports in terms of the sports colleges were stopped. So, you know, it's things like that that happened, I think, that caused the problems that we've got. And Manos is right. You know, the driving force from a government perspective is, yes, we want people to do well and achieve in sport for all the reasons we said about aspiring and inspiration. But there are those issues around health and about physical activity that we wanted to do. So we've still a lot more that needs to be done. The good news is that the present government have kept the funding for Tokyo, and we will still, as I say, achieve the medals and all of that. But that will be no good if we don't keep school sports and community sport going as well.
I think this is probably more for you, Susan. I'm here from Nottingham tonight, so thank you, Michael, for that invitation. I'm here because with my business, I look to connect businesses across the UK as a form of networking, so I hear very much what you're saying there. But in Nottingham and the East Midlands generally, I think we are feeling the same as you are about the Northern Powerhouse, that we're sort of being squeezed out. We're trying to cling on to the phrase of the Midlands engine room. But I was talking to somebody who was involved in the inward investment for Nottingham, and they seem to be very focused on the fact that they need to go to London to get people to come to Nottingham and to the East Midlands for that investment and growth in the area. Is that what you're thinking for Bradford? Are you looking as far south or as London, or are you looking for businesses that would be in the East Midlands, that it's not so far to come here, where there are opportunities for businesses to actually do business together?
So I think I've been a leader since May. One of the first things I did was join the Key Cities Network, which means that we can connect with other similar-sized cities, and those are all over the country, for example. So there's Sunderland, Wolverhampton, Portsmouth. So just to make sure that we're in those conversations wherever they happen. And you can't ignore the fact that London is still where a lot of the businesses are headquartered, although in Bradford, actually, we have a lot of FTSE 100 companies, actually, which people underestimate. So I am going to be going down to London to make our case, a lot with government as well, actually, as well as with business. But the Northern Powerhouse, I think the concept was right, actually, but just there was no execution behind it. So that's why it became a little bit of a fallacy, really, because people thought, well, it's spin and no substance. Now, I want it to mean something, because I think if we want growth in the country, the North and, of course, the Midlands has to achieve its potential. And at the moment, we're undershooting that economic potential. London, you can't build any more things in London. It is overheating as an economy. People are paying a fortune to live in very small accommodations, with very poor quality of life. And they can't build the transport infrastructure quick enough to sustain that growth. So for me, it just seems that you'll get much more value for money by investing in infrastructure in the Midlands and the north of England, so that actually all the latent growth here can be realised. And I think that's cheaper and easier to achieve. And I'm hoping that this new government sees that. And I, of course, will be making the case for that.
I think the good news as well is that it's not a political football in the sense of, you know, it's not Labour against Conservatives against the Lib Dems. There's a great passion across the parties, particularly in our area, and I'm sure in the East Midlands, for something to work, because they can see what's happened. So the discussions that are taking place in our area are cross-party discussions. They're not about, Labour wins and the Tories lose and all that sort of thing, because people see how vital it is. But I think yours is a good point. I think that the regions can talk to each other, should talk to each other about what goes on. When I was MP for Bradford South, I went around lots of companies who didn't want to get involved, to be honest, in terms of local authorities or government. They just wanted to do the things they were good at and get on and grow and not have people hinder them. And I actually think a network within the regions could work in terms of advice that could be given to growing and developing companies within our sectors that would help the overall picture.
Hi guys, so we're at the Yorkshire Enterprise Network, so it's only right to ask a question about enterprise. In schools, I think it's very much the case where students are pushed down the path that if they're academic, they will do their GCSEs, sixth form, and then university. If they're perhaps not so academic, it might be the case they go down the apprentice route or straight into work. But how do you see that enterprise and entrepreneurship could be pushed more in schools as a viable and feasible career option for younger people?
I think we have to explain the education system, which seems to me, old as I am, to be so diverse now. My son's a teacher, and he says, all that we want is stability. The trouble is that there's been so much turnover and change in terms of the different shades of government affecting education policy, which has meant that parents have not understood what the routes are through in terms of academic achievement or whatever else. I want to see more apprentices. I think apprenticeships work for those that are less academic. The problem was, particularly with our government in 97 onwards, we wanted to get more people into university. And so we were pushing people to go to university. That it might have been better that they hadn't gone to university, perhaps gone through a different route. And I think entrepreneurship and enterprise is vitally important. Some great competitions in schools at the moment. Buttershaw College have got an enterprise team that enters all these national competitions, does very well. But they're isolated up there in terms of other schools should be doing it as well. So I don't know, Susan.
First of all, on apprenticeships, I'm quite fixed on the idea that actually apprenticeships aren't just for those young people who aren't academically brilliant, actually, because apprenticeships are, there's so many different apprenticeships now. There's higher apprenticeships. I know a young girl who's got really good A-level results. She's going to go to a civil engineering firm where she's going to earn 15 grand a year just graduated from her A-levels, and they're going to sponsor her through a degree, and she'll earn a lot of money in the future. So apprenticeships are a real alternative to a university education for children who are bright and able, just as if they wanted to go to university. So I think we have to understand the education system, Gerry's right, has changed enormously, and it's very hard for employers and for parents to keep up with that. So the choices that our young people make are really quite difficult for them. Enterprise should be in all schools. An entrepreneurial streak is what we all need, whether we set up our own business or we just need to be enterprising in somebody else's business. It's a skill set that I started out in my working life as a business owner, and that has never left me, actually. I always think like a small business, and that can be a disadvantage as well as an advantage. But it's a skill set that you keep with you for all your life, and it is actually quite useful. So I would encourage businesses to get involved in schools. There's lots of opportunities to do that kind of work. It's just about connecting with the academy chains probably as well in the first instance to see how they want to use you. Because as I said in my speech, businesses have a big role to play in education. You can't just expect the schools to spin out complete working individuals. It's all our responsibility to make sure they come out as successful working lives.
Hi, it's going back to the comment you were making about devolution, Gerry. I've just finished a large project working on behalf of Sheffield City Region, which was managing a public consultation exercise about devolution in the area, which is heading towards an election next May for an elected mayor for Sheffield. So when you talk about devolution for sort of Yorkshire and the Humber side as a whole, and sort of Sheffield are obviously doing their own thing at the moment, are you just looking sort of Leeds and Bradford, or will it be a case of individual cities doing their own thing, or are you talking to Sheffield and are you looking at sort of Yorkshire as a whole?
This is a personal view. My personal view, I would have gone for the Greater Yorkshire thing, but I understand why that can't happen. There clearly are, issues affecting each of the localities. But I just felt because the region had an identity that we were developing through Welcome to Yorkshire, sort of that regional identity. I've got to the point now where I'm not really bothered with what the model is. I just want it to happen because we can't afford to wait for the reasons that I think everybody understands. The North West have already had £22 billion more than Yorkshire and the Humber through the fact that they've got these devolved opportunities. I think what they're doing in Sheffield is great, and I don't think that will debar us from working with Sheffield in the future. I think the opportunities there. It seems to me, if I've got to forecast, and I'm not forecasting because that's down to Susan and others to negotiate their way through it, it might be a phased programme. We might end up with the sort of Leeds and York City region, which might be West Yorkshire, North Yorkshire to start off with, then bringing the others in over a period of time. I think there's a discussion to be had about what powers do we want. I mean, I've said transport, regeneration and others, but I mean, again, that's open for discussion as well. But I think if I leave you with anything, it is we can't afford to wait much longer. Because it's in politics, there are things that are fashions, and I'm pleased that Theresa May has picked up where George Osborne was at. George Osborne wasn't doing it for philanthropic reasons. There was a clear political agenda there, and one understands what he was trying to do. But she's now said she's prepared to continue, but she's also said she's not going to force anybody. And if you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. But if you don't do it, you don't get the money, you don't get the programmes that are going to come over this period of time. And I think with all that's around, Yorkshire and the Humber, the North, or the East Midlands, needs to be in a position that it's making its case. And we need to support our political leaders to say, come on, let's get on with it.
Yeah, I mean, I want the best deal for Bradford. And actually, whilst we talk a lot about different geographies, the whole Yorkshire solution has sort of left the station a bit because South Yorkshire went on their own. So it could be a greater, lesser kind of Yorkshire, I suppose. Do you include Hull? Do you not? Do you include North Yorkshire? Do you not? The fact of the matter is the Leeds City region actually pulls in people from quite a wide area. So Harrogate and Craven, a lot of those people depend on Bradford and Leeds for employment, and they go back to Harrogate and Craven at night. But of course, that's a big part of North Yorkshire and their business rates. So North Yorkshire, of course, doesn't want to be carved up. So it's difficult getting everybody to agree on one solution. But I think we happen to get too obsessed about the geography. I think we just need to start somewhere, and then we can build on that going forward. But I don't think Bradford can afford not to have a devolution deal, because otherwise we'll be left behind. Leeds is a big city, and government are always going to talk to Leeds. Bradford is also a big city, but we're going to be forgotten more if we don't get a devolution deal. So I'm really keen that is important for us to do. The content, I think, is something that gets overlooked more. So everybody gets obsessed with talking about the geography and doesn't look at the content. I'm very keen on looking at the content more. So I'll do the best deal for Bradford I can. And I've tried not to be too intransigent about my position geographically, so there's room to negotiate, and I'll probably leave it at that.
Hello, everybody. Gerry, I asked you a question earlier that made me feel a little bit stupid, but because we've had lunch together, I felt it was okay for me to ask. And I just want to ask on behalf of anyone else in the room that felt like I did, could you tell me what the hell devolution is, please?
It's a fair point, that, because people talk about devolution, Northern Powerhouse, and all this and all that, and because we're close to it, you understand the working discussions. Devolution basically is making sure that your money, taxpayers' money, gets spread out evenly across the country. Where money comes in from other investments also gets spread across the country, and it's called devolved powers. So Susan says we've got to work out what the content of that is going to be, and we also got to make sure we know where our funding is going to come from. We already have devolution in Scotland, their own government and their own income streams. We've got Wales, we've got Northern Ireland. As I said earlier, Yorkshire and the Humber is 6.5 million people, bigger than all three of those. And then whether it's the East Midland region or where else, massive areas that need to have power in those areas, so the decision makers work with business, with trade unions, with all in those communities to decide the best way forward for that area.
Okay. Yes. Thank you, guys. Can we have a round of applause, Susan and Gerry, please?